between Israel and Iran is a conflict that's been building for decades and is now spiraling out of control. The Israelis began this phase with a huge wave of strikes on June the 13th that have continued for days, dealing damaging blows to Iran's nuclear weapons program and taking out key scientific and military personnel. Iran's response has been to fire missile and drone barrages, while some Israeli leaders speak openly of regime change in Tehran. The threat of war between Israel and Iran has hung over the Middle East for more than 40 years, and we look at some of the key events and alliances that have shaped this proxy war and brought it out of the shadows. Of all the conflicts in recent times, the Iran-Israel conflict is arguably one of the more complex and enduring. As of right now, Iran and Israel have never fought a full-scale war, but they remain engaged in a long-standing mix of political hostility, intelligence operations, cyber attacks, and proxy warfare. In today's video, we will attempt to explain the history of the modern Middle East, the ideological foundations of both countries, and the ever-changing dynamic. It's perhaps helpful to start with the foundation of the State of Israel in 1948, and perhaps surprisingly, the initial friendly relationship between the two countries. After the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, most Muslim-majority countries in the Middle East refused to recognize Israel as a legitimate state. Many opposed the formation of Israel as a Western colonial endeavor, as it appeared to ignore Palestinian claims over the territories where Israel was being formed. However, the Pahlavi monarchy that governed Iran still to build informal ties with Israel. Both nations shared strategic interests, especially during the Cold War. Iran under the Shahs was a secular pro-Western monarchy allied with the United States of America. This would mean that the Iranian Shah would support Israel in both trade and military, though it should be noted that not everyone in Iran felt the same way. Thousands took to the streets of Tehran to protest the formation of Israel in 1948. Iranian religious leaders such as the Ayatollah would visit Palestinian refugees and highlight their plight. The support for the Palestinian cause would remain one of the key points of conflict between Iran and Israel in the years to come. During the 1967 Six-Day War, Iranian economic support came in the form of oil. Israel, in turn, would supply technology and expertise to Iran in exchange for this vital resource. The Trans-Israel Pipeline was a joint and equal Iranian and Israeli venture, highlighting how the trade in oil was a key part of their relationship. Many Iranian and Israeli companies worked closely with one another, setting up shop in each other's countries. But these close ties would be severed in 1979 in the Islamic Revolution. The Islamic Revolution saw the Shah overthrown, and Ayatollah Khomeini established an Islamic republic based on Shia theocracy. The new regime adopted a vehemently anti-Israel stance, calling Israel the Little Satan. Much of Iran's new ideological position was based on seeing Zionism as a Western colonial project and viewed the Israeli occupation of Palestinian land as a moral and religious injustice. Iran ceased all relations with Israel, supported Palestinian militant groups, and began to call in debts accrued during the two countries' friendlier times. Yet despite this initial hostility towards Israel, Iran would face a much closer threat. In 1980, the Iran-Iraq War began. The pan-Islamic approach to the new Iranian government was at odds with Saddam Hussein's pan-Arab nationalism. The long-standing rivalry between the two neighbors would see some of the bloodiest fighting. For Israel, Iraq had long been a key force in the Arab opposition to its existence as a state, and was seen as much more of a threat than the new state of Iran. Israel sought to support Iran in order to weaken Iraq, while sending its newest enemy to attack another foe. Israel began to supply Iran with hundreds of millions of dollars worth of arms. The sale of arms was in contravention of sanctions against Iran, but Israel did have the backing of the United States and was assured that its own weapon stockpiles would be replenished. It was hoped by the Americas that the supply of arms to Iran would garner favor with more moderate forces within the Iranian army, who in turn could prove useful in a coup to oust the Islamic government. This whole affair was part of the notorious Iran-Contra scandal, which saw the Reagan administration use funds generated by the sale of weapons to Iran to illegally fund right-wing militias in Nicaragua. In addition to the supplying of weapons, Israeli military advisors remained in Iran for the entirety of the war. Israel also launched its own military strikes against Iraq, notably targeting Iraqi nuclear facilities in an effort to slow down Iraqi attempts of creating a nuclear weapon. Since the end of the Iran-Iraq War in 1989, the Iran-Israel conflict has remained deeply ideological. Iran's ruling elite views the very existence of Israel as illegitimate and based on the occupation of Muslim land. Conversely, Israel views Iran's regime as an existential threat. Iranian leaders have frequently spoken about the eventual elimination of Israel, which Israel interprets as a threat of genocide. The memory of what happened in Germany is often a driving force for the Israeli security policy to treat any similar threats with utmost seriousness. While ideology would play a key role, the Iran-Israeli conflict is also a struggle for regional dominance. Iran has, over the years, expanded its influence in the Middle East through its proxy militias, political allies, and economic ties. Some of the proxy militias include Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and the Houthis in Yemen. These groups often launched attacks on Israel or on its allies, many operating from countries sharing a border with Israel. Iran's support for these groups is in the form of weapons, money, and training of militants. By supporting governments that oppose Israel and by backing militias, Iran seeks to maintain constant pressure on Israel and place itself as a key regional power. Hezbollah, the Shia jihadist militia based in Lebanon, is arguably Iran's most capable proxy. The group was founded in 1982 following Israel's occupation of southern Lebanon. The invasion by Israel had created a humanitarian disaster and fertile ground for Lebanon's underrepresented Shia population. A contingent of Iranian Revolutionary Guard helped found, organize, and train the group. Hezbollah has over the years grown into a hybrid military and political force. They hold seats in the Lebanese parliament, carry out a number of social programs, and run schools and hospitals. All the while, it pledges loyalty to Iran, and one of its key goals is the destruction of Israel. It has tens of thousands of rockets capable of hitting Israeli cities and maintains a strong force of fighters. The 2006 Lebanon war between Israel and Hezbollah ended in a stalemate, but demonstrated Hezbollah's capabilities. Since then, both sides have prepared for a potential full-scale war, which analysts fear could be devastating for both countries. Israel has frequently targeted Iranian weapon shipments to Hezbollah in Syria. Hezbollah in turn threatens retaliation and will fire rockets into Israel. During the Syrian civil war that began in 2011, Iran also supported Assad's government. It should be noted that Syria has not recognized the State of Israel, and the Golan Heights region of Syria, which was captured by Israel during the Six-Day War, remains occupied by Israel to this day. As Iran built bases, supplied weapons, and embedded itself with the Syrian military, Israel responded with the war between the wars. This saw a number of Israeli airstrikes against Iranian infrastructure in Syria. The conflict in Syria saw soldiers of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and Hezbollah fighters targeted by Israeli jets. More recent events in Gaza in response to the October 7th attack, and even more recent strikes into Iran, highlight Israel's approach in dealing with Iran in a far less historical sense. What's perceived to be the most dangerous aspect of the Iran-Israel conflict is Iran's nuclear program. Israel asserts that an Iran with nuclear weapons would present a threat to not only them, but the wider world. Israel developed a doctrine of attacking nuclear facilities of its enemies during the Iran-Iraq War, known as the Begin Doctrine. It sees Israel carry out preemptive strikes against its enemies' nuclear facilities. Such a policy has been met by international condemnation, but Israel sees it as necessary to restrict the proliferation of nuclear weapons. As for Iran, it insists its nuclear program is peaceful and intended just for energy and medical reasons. But its secrecy and its enrichment activities have raised alarms internationally. There are a series of agreements and treaties to seek to limit Iran's nuclear program and ensure that it does not produce nuclear weapons. In exchange, Iran receives relief from sanctions placed on the country. Israel has often opposed these treaties, labeling them too lenient and not taking the threat of Iranian nuclear capabilities seriously. There are numerous examples of Israeli attempts to disrupt the Iranian nuclear program, including the Stuxnet virus that sabotaged Iranian nuclear facilities and the assassinations of many Iranian nuclear scientists. This includes Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, a chief of Iran's nuclear program. There are conflicting details about his assassination, whether it was an ambush by gunmen or whether it was a remote-controlled autonomous gun. In more recent years, nuclear deals with Iran have flatlined. If Iran ever obtains nuclear weapons, it could fundamentally alter the conflict. Israel has consistently taken military steps to prevent this, and with the pressure from the international community, Iran has not been able to achieve nuclear weapons. It should be noted that Iran insists it has no intention of building a nuclear bomb, but continues uranium enrichment beyond the terms of the nuclear treaty. And it should also be noted that whilst Israel has never officially confirmed it has nuclear weapons, it is widely suspected that they are in possession of such weapons, and it's believed that they have around 400 warheads. So Iran can't have nukes, but they can. In 2020, Israel signed normalization agreements with several Arab states, including the UAE and Bahrain, under the Abraham Accords. These accords seek to normalize relations between Arab countries and Israel with the hopes of avoiding any further conflicts. Iran viewed these agreements as a betrayal by Arab governments. While Arab populations remain sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, their governments have polarized economic and security cooperation, particularly in countering Iran's influence and its continued funding of proxies. Both Israel and Iran have the backing of larger powers, key to assert their influence over the region. The United States has long been a player in the Iran-Israel conflict, and is Israel's most important ally, providing billions in military aid. The U.S. has also led efforts to contain Iran through sanctions, military presence, and diplomacy. Whilst Israel has the backing of the U.S. and Europe, Iran receives support from both Russia and China. Russia has longed to maintain a military presence in Syria, vital for its naval access to the Mediterranean Sea. The Syrian civil war saw both Iran and Russia align to maintain their influence in the country. China and Iran have also signed long-term strategic agreements, such as the recent Iran-China 25 Cooperation Program in 2021. China continues to invest in the Iranian economy, especially as Western sanctions have isolated Iran. Israel's position on Iran can be summed up based on its security doctrines. It has sought to normalize relations with its neighbors, using its Western allies and military to maintain its safety. Israel remains concerned about rhetoric from Iranian leaders calling for its destruction, and about a future where Iran has nuclear weapons. As for Iran, it views Israel as a product of Western colonialism, and that Zionism presents a threat to the region. Iran continues to back the Palestinian cause, funding Hamas and other militias, and calls for the dismantling of the State of Israel. Iran also frames its own nuclear program as a balance to Israel, insisting that it is purely defensive. Iran sees Israel as a threat to Islamic unity and an oppressor of Muslims. The Iran-Israel conflict will remain one of the more complex in the region. The number of proxy militias and the difference in ideology will keep the conflict going. Though it has not yet erupted into direct war, it has the potential to reshape the Middle East and beyond if left unchecked. Understanding this conflict is essential to understanding the dynamics of the Middle East and the fragile peace that is always so close to breaking.